Hello, I am Matt Williamson. How's it going today? Strange day here in Latrobe. We are back after the acclimation process, padded practices for Tuesday. I'm recording this Tuesday night. Just got back from dinner, but little wrench in the plan. It poured here, and they didn't cancel practice, but they went inside and did a walkthrough. The fields were unusable. So I was really excited to talk to you guys about first padded practice. Now, I do think it's going to be really good here tomorrow. Didn't be able to do any hitting today, so I think they're going to get after it really hard tomorrow, maximize the Wednesday edition of practice. The McAfee show is going to be here. There's going to be a ton of people, I'm sure. So that should be great. But in the meantime, I have been saving this literally for a rainy day, and today was about as rainy as you're going to get. So I want to talk about some things I dug up. But first, before we do, the news of the day, or since we got together last, is Cordarrelle Patterson's been released. I still don't have any answers on this matter, to be honest with you. I don't know why it took so long. I never thought for one instance he thought, or he, really him too, I'm not sure he even thought he was part of the master plan. I don't know why it took forever. Maybe it'll come out, or someone will tell me, or whatever will mention why this took so long. But they get a little bit of cap savings. I don't think he's been in the mix. I know he hasn't been in the mix. I don't think he was ever in the plans. Gainwell, I think, will be your kickoff returner. I think you have some running backs on this roster, Hull and Sermon, that have a chance to be break glass in case of emergency type guys. So just wanted to get that out of the way. That's finally done. It feels like every mailbag episode I do, I hear something about why is Cordarrelle Patterson still around? And I never had an answer. So I don't know. Also, BetOnline is your world's most trusted betting platform and your source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We keep the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on everything. With updated odds on MLB, UFC to boxing to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. So as I mentioned, this is something I've been trying to save for a rainy day, and today was about as rainy as it gets. So I apologize. Actually, let me find out who this young man is. Jeff Berkus at Gridiron Born. He put together this chart and saved a lot of work for me, because what he did was he just did a simple addition problem, and he combined explosive play differential. When I say differential, I mean your team created 100 explosive plays but allowed 50, so you're plus 50. See what I'm saying? Obviously, whatever you created minus whatever you allowed. So you want positive numbers all the way. So explosive play differential is a huge determining factor with successful teams in this league. He did the same thing with sack differential. How many more sacks do you have than you allowed? And turnover differential, which is super important, obviously. But what I like about what he did was he doubled the turnover differential. He made it more important than the other two. And history shows that the one number that is most indicative of wins and losses is turnover differential. But to this guy's credit, I do believe, as he does, sack differential and explosive play differential are the two things battling for second on that chart, of what is indicative of winning and losing in the NFL. But nothing's as important as turnover differential. So he makes turnover differential double. If you're -5 in turnover differential. He calls it -10. If you're 0, you're 0. If you're +5, it's +10. You see what I'm saying? And adds these things up. Now, as you might imagine, the first, let me go through these here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that ends up in this total combined metric were all playoff teams. All playoff teams. Best teams in the league. And then there's 3 teams that were out of it, and then two more teams that were playoff teams. At the bottom of the list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 bottom teams, none of which made the playoffs. So this is super indicative of where you're at overall as a team. And then he breaks it down into each category to see where these numbers come from. So, okay, when you add these things together, again, explosive play differential plus sack differential times turnovers doubled. The Bills were the best in the league, plus 88. Think about that. That is so many huge plays that went their way as opposed to allowing. Ravens, plus 66. Packers, plus 64. Broncos, plus 55, led the league in sacks. Eagles, plus 51. And there's the Vikings at plus 38, and then there's your Steelers at plus 32. That's why they're winning games, guys, because they're good in these 3 combined metrics. They're with the best teams in the league. Okay, that's right ahead of the Chargers and Lions. The worst teams in the league. How about this? The Browns are minus 101. All like the big things that could happen in a game, more or less, I know one of them's weighted, 101 really bad things more happened to them or they allowed than they created. That's so bad. 101. Titans had the first pick of the draft. They're minus 61. Patriots, minus 58. Raiders, minus 52. Jags, minus 49. These are all the worst teams in the league. Now, how do we get there with the Steelers? Okay. I find this very interesting. First of all, let's start with the good. Their turnover differential, when you multiply it times 2, 32. So they're plus 16 in turnover differential, which was very, very good this year. And they ended up plus 32 when you double it. Fantastic. They take the ball away. Najee wasn't a fumbler. He's not here. And interceptions were okay, not great. Rodgers historically is not a big interception quarterback. I do think that there is art to taking the football away, and the Steelers are quite good at it. I don't know if they'll be super, tremendous in takeaways, but I do think they'll be near the top of the league again. Who knows on the ball carriers? You know what I mean? Okay, so that's good. And again, these are all not predictive going forward, but still, this might shock you. The Steelers did create 9 more explosive plays than they allowed. Now, their explosive runs barely qualified. Let's just put it that way. They weren't 80-yard scampers, you know what I mean? But they were, quote, explosive. And they had a lot of deep completions down the field. But the defense didn't allow many explosives, which is the key here. Again, these are key metrics in determining and creating wins. Now, some of this is chicken or egg too. You get to be a good team by doing these, but they also, good teams do them. You know what I mean? I'm not explaining that as well as I want, but you understand the chicken or egg aspect of this. So here's the problem area though for the Steelers is they were minus 9 in sack differential. And I bring this up now because if you listen to the O-line article or podcast I did just 2 days ago, we went into this pretty heavy and it got a lot of feedback from you guys, and I definitely think sacks are a quarterback stat. And I didn't know this till today actually, but Aaron Rodgers has been sacked more than any quarterback in NFL history. It's only because he played forever. Tom Brady's second. They're 1 sack apart. So for context, Russell Wilson has played 9 years less than Aaron Rodgers, but he's been sacked 6 fewer times. So if you really break it down like sacks per game, Rodgers is not a problem. Actually, he's a plus, and he is very, very good mentally from this regard. And Wilson has always been a high sack guy, as has Fields. And as you know, one of the things I've been stressing now for months is the Steelers with this pass rush cannot be middle of the league in sacks produced from their defense. And I think a big problem why it became an issue was their coverage situation. We've gone into this to no end now, so I'm not going to go down this road again and again and again. But I think the Steelers have the best pass rush in the league. I will be blown away, especially after their defensive back additions, that they aren't near the top of the league in sacks produced. And I definitely think their sacks allowed will go down tremendously. Now, will turnover differential be as good? I don't know. I kind of lean towards similar. Will their explosives differential be as good? Hard to say. Really hard to say. I mean, Metcalf's an explosive guy. Caleb Johnson had a lot of explosive runs. I think Warren's an explosive player. I think the defense should be improved, but that doesn't mean that we better disallowing explosive plays. But I thought this was really interesting stuff. And again, you're with the best teams in the league. You're right ahead of the Chargers and Lions. You're right behind the Eagles and Vikings from last year's overall differential from this metric. And that's not with Herbert, Goff, Hurts, Mahomes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you didn't have the most talent in the league, but you do these things right, or if you create them, you win a lot of football games this league. All right. Thanks, everyone.